Hey, it's Kyle with Sentinel Peak Design Studio. Today, we're going to be doing a recreation of the silhouette picture in a picture frame. Um, Someone had this on Facebook and asked how to make it, so I sent over. I'll show you what I did make. I sent over how to make this guy here. This was done just directly in the slicer. I used the picture she sent, which was what I just had up, and took a screenshot of it and made the SVG. I'll be showing you how to do that. So this part of it was done with making the SVG. Then I added the text and then added a border. You can see it's a little hard to do in the board in the slicer. My border isn't very straight. So the proper way to do this is in Fusion or another 3D type software. You can do Tinkercad or whatever you like, but I like using Fusion. That is also going to help us with making the frame. I did do a little couple tests on the frame and doing thickness and how wide it is. I'm an American and I've got trouble visualizing millimeters. So I had to print some out. Um, let's look at the picture again. Now, looking at this, my proportions were obviously way off with my frame. The frame on this is rather large in proportion to the picture itself. I'd say at least 33%. So we're going to do some math when we set this up in Fusion to figure out what what sizes to use. We are limited by printer bed size. So let's hop over to Fusion. Actually, first we need to get our SVG. So we can get that into Fusion. So easy way to do that. Um, Making an SVG from a picture that's already black and white is the easiest. So if I'm trying to do a logo or something, what I'll often do is take it into ChatGPT and have them simplify it. Take out colors, just give me borders, and then I've got later when I'm doing it, if I want to make the keychain or light box or whatever into color, I've got that picture with the colors on it for reference still. But for modeling purposes and getting it into Fusion and doing all that, getting the SVG, much easier if you start off with black and white. So this is good that this is already starting that way. If you're doing this for yourself, wanting to do your own kids, I'm not a graphic designer, so you're gonna have to figure out how to get a silhouette. I'll show you how to get this into a 3D model, but the other part is on you. Um, this also obviously isn't my family. I am gonna put my own name when I do the sample just to show you how it's done. Um, but graphic design and getting a silhouette is on you. All right, so first thing I want to do, I do want to get kind of the best screenshot and image I can. So zoom in a little bit and then print screen button. I want to keep it as much as I can, just the actual picture. So try to keep out the extra stuff. I'm going to get some of it, show you how to get rid of that. There we go. I use Inkscape for my SVG conversion. There's lots of programs online. So with the print screen, just go over to the program, hit Control V, and that pastes it right in. Over on the right, we'll go ahead and close out of this. Okay, so this is what we get when we bring it in here. We are going to now convert this to an SVG, and to do that, so it's called vectorizing. I don't know exactly what it does. Again, I'm not a graphic designer, but I'll show you how it helps us in just a second. So with this, I can't edit any lines. I can't do anything with this actual picture. So right click on the picture, go down to trace bitmap, and then you'll notice over on the right, this pops up. Um, this threshold bar, you can mess with settings to get it how you like it. Usually they bring it in. If you bring in a black and white picture, it does a pretty good job of giving you what you want. You can mess with this if you want to make lines more crisp. You can see that there's a fine line. of where you want to go. We don't want spots in there because those are going to show up, but we do want lines defined between the silhouettes. So let's mess with this a little bit to get it how we want it. We can go in, we will go in and do some more editing to get lines how we want them. Let's see how that looks. And then hit apply. Now it goes over it. So here you've got both images stacked. Over in this right panel, expand this layer. Here does have both of them. If you're familiar with graphics programs and how they work with different layers and stuff, um, you'll know that and how to use these. Uh, I don't need the image anymore. I just want my path, my bitmap. That's what we're going to turn into our SVG. So just delete that. We're left with this. Now you'll notice if I double click in the black area, I can edit stuff. So now I can take these forms over here, and to zoom in, I'm holding control and spinning my mouse wheel. If you click down on your center mouse wheel button, that lets you pan around. And then I'm going to hold shift. Actually, you can highlight this whole section. If you're trying to do it in pieces, you'll hold shift, but highlight that whole section. That's gone. Do the same thing up here in this corner. Oop, missed one there. So in here, we're just going to clean it up so we've got a good file before we take it over to Fusion. So here I'm going to use shift and to highlight multiple sections. Okay. Now in here, we want to get rid of some artifacts, anything that's not going to turn out well on the printer. Printers have pretty small thresholds. You got a 0.4 nozzle. So 0.4 millimeters is pretty much the smallest you can get unless you get a smaller nozzle tip. We're going to do some editing over in Fusion, and I'll show you how to make these complete lines. If you did want to separate these out into separate pieces, say you wanted to do different layers, you would need these as actually separate bodies in Fusion. So you would need them completely separated to extrude separately. So I'll show you how to do that if you want to make them separate. That could look kind of cool having the different layers. Or you can do it all as one layer and not have to worry about going through that. It is a little bit tedious. So I'm going to do it on just this first kid. Basically, you've got to complete this white line here to make it its own separate piece. All right, let's go through again and try to just get rid of little pieces. I'm going to complete this over in Fusion, as I mentioned, but I do want to keep kind of some reference pieces. All right. Another thing I like to do, sharp corners are hard on the 3D printer just because getting in that angle when you've got the 0.4 nozzle, it can leave some missed points. So this part is easier to edit in here. All right. So I'm going to just go through and try to find any extreme points like this. What I do is up here on the top, again, I'm not in graphic design. I don't know what all this is called, but I just hit this guy right here. It gives me handles. I can make it less of a point, and then that'll make it print better, and it's not going to affect really how it looks at all. Okay, for this little piece sticking out here, I'm just going to make it a little thicker so it prints a little better. It is going to be one thing to keep in mind, since these are going to be extruded out and not embedded in the actual print. Which you can do it either way. If you wanted to make this into a light box, you can make it all the same layer or the same level. But we're going to do it sticking out. So you don't want anything too thin or it'll be easy to break off. when it's printed sticking up. Okay, I'm going to call that good for now. I am going to now we'll mess with the size when we're over in Fusion. Okay, so save this. It defaults to saving it as an SVG. This is going to be our silhouette. Now, one other thing I'm going to show you on the other picture up at the top, it's got this intricate detail. I did take another screenshot of that, and I've got an SVG. I've already done some work on this, cleaned it up a little bit. I'm not going to do it perfect, but I'll show you how to, if you wanted to take that same process of getting a screenshot, right click, trace bitmap. It's very easy to smooth this out. I'm not going to take all the time, but it really doesn't need all these, what are these called? Nodes. It doesn't need them all. So if you just go through and see how they're at funky angles, if you just go through and delete these, you're going to get a much smoother piece to work with. Now it's much easier to manipulate the side, and now it's nice and smooth. So it would take some time for me to go through and do that. Okay, go ahead and save this. Also as an SVG, this is going to be detail. And then the last thing on there were the lines on the side. And I will show you how to do that. We're going to do that right in Fusion. Not going to worry about that right now. Okay. We've got both of our SVGs saved. Let's head over to Fusion. We're going to do this as a hybrid design. We're going to have this as different pieces. We know we have at least white, the black for the silhouettes, and then the border, you can make that black, you can make it brown, not the border, the actual frame. And then this actually had a gold trim as well. So we can make that its own separate piece. So depending, you can have up to 4 colors on here, and that would be 4 components. So because we have multiple components, we need a hybrid design. If we're just having one part, it's all together, we do a part design. We want multiple colors, hybrid design. Create new. Oh, on that last screen, make sure you select millimeters. Mine defaults to that, but make sure you've got that selected. Okay. This is not going to be an in-depth Fusion tutorial. You will need to know some basics to get around, but what I'm doing isn't terribly difficult, so you should be able to figure it out. Think of this right here as our build plate. I'm going to set some dimensions just so we keep ourselves kind of confined to our build plate area. 250 is at least a standard size for most now. You do need to keep in mind you've got a corner for a prime tower. This is oval shaped, so it should leave plenty of room over on the side to have the prime tower. But if you have something more circular or square, keep in mind you need that area in the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out a square 250 by 250. I know Bamboo's standard is 256. I've got Cobra X, and that's 260 by 260, and Snapmaker is 270. So I'm going to do this at 250. That should cover plenty of printers and be good for an example. So everything is started with the sketch in Fusion. So up here on your, make sure you're in the solids menu. click on this and you're going to start a sketch. Think of these as the three planes. This is your bottom, your XY plane. Uh, that's where we're going to start. That's where you're going to start for most things. Think of that as starting and building up from the build plate. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to build this thing up from the bottom. If you wanted to build something face on, this would be your view, or from the side. We are going to use this view later on to build the frame. For now, start our sketch on the bottom. Up here on the create, this is where we create a lot of our drawing shapes. I want a rectangle, and we're going to set this, it's going to be a square. I want to have it exactly centered in the middle. So we're going to have a center point rectangle. And over here, this isn't going to be anything we use except for reference. So our line type, it's just going to be a construction line. So we chose center point rectangle. So we need to start in the center, click, drag out. Doesn't matter where you go. We're just going to use our keyboard, type in 250, tab, 250, tab. Okay. Now we have our build area. Hit escape. See how it keeps your last tool selected. Hit escape and that goes away. We don't need these cross pieces, so select those and delete. This is our build area now. Now for some math. Let's look back at our picture. Actually, there we go. You can now see it in the bottom corner. Okay. We need to figure out how big we can make our center oval first, and then we're going to build off of that. So if we want to have, say, let me go back to my camera. Okay, this is a 5mm border. This is 7.5. So I am just going to pull out my caliper and figure out what looks good, because millimeters are not my forte. So if we're looking at, say, doing a third of this, this I believe is 200 millimeters that I did for my sample, and then 100, a little over 150 wide, 155 wide. So if I think like 35 should look good for a border around the whole thing. So taking this size was 200. If I do 35 and 35 for both sides, that's going to be 270. It's going to be a little bit too much. So let's say 30, 30, and then that will leave 190 for our center for doing our silhouette. So let's get back over into Fusion. We need an oval. Fusion doesn't call it oval, it is an ellipse. So over on your create menu, go to ellipse. And this always starts in the center, and we're going to define first how tall it is and then how wide it is. So click the center and then just drag down. We decided 190. So click over here, make sure you select, it keeps your last selection, so it's still on construction. Took that off. So we're at 190 tall, and I say 150 wide. Since we went a little shorter, we'll go a little narrower. That looks like a good oval to me. Just be careful, don't finish sketch. You can get back into it. This is your timeline down here. If you double click this, so if you accidentally finish sketch, you can't do any more editing or add any more lines or anything. You can right click and edit sketch, or double click on that and get back into it. Okay, so down, looking at our example From there, there's a gold ring, and we'll call that 5 millimeters. Um, so let's make our total outside. We're going to have to subtract that 5 now. Um, Actually, nope, let's do this. Let's offset that inside. So to make an exact replica of this inside, we don't need to start with a new one. Up here on your menu, this that looks like a racetrack, just go ahead and click that. You're going to select your outer ring. This defaults to going out. We don't want it to go out. We want to save our 35 on each side. So you can either take this and drag it in. You'll notice it's hard to get an exact amount. So another way to do it, notice positives are out, negatives are in. So all you have to do is type a -5, and that gives you an exact 5 millimeter ring around the outside. We aren't going to do any of these extrusions yet. Let's go ahead from here. Let's make our frame. And then we're going to extrude our center up. And then from the top of that, since on top of the extrusion, that's where our silhouette is going and the name and the detail and stuff, we'll go ahead and create another sketch and bring our SVG in. So mentioned earlier, we can go ahead and finish this for now. Mentioned earlier, we're going to use that other perspective. We need to create another sketch on that front plane. So let's look at our home position. So looking at the build plate, we have our plaque that we're going to be extruding our silhouettes out of. We need to create a shape over here that's going to become our frame outline or profile. And then what we're going to do is use what's called a sweep and take that profile and make it follow this outer ring all the way around and make a new solid body using that profile. So let's go ahead and zoom in here. Actually, yeah. Let's switch over to my camera and look at what I've already got printed. Okay, this is 2 millimeters thick. This one's 5. This one is 10. I think 10 millimeters is pretty good for a total overall thickness of the frame. And then 5 millimeters for the inner ring, the gold ring. And then 2 millimeters is kind of thin, maybe 3 millimeters. Let's actually look at how it looks on the original. Okay, so it does raise up, I'd say, I'm not even going to judge that from the picture. It's actually quite a bit. If we're using this as 5 millimeters, we can do whatever we want. Let's look at this overall shape. So we don't know how tall it is from the back side or the overall. I'm going to give it 10 millimeters. It comes straight across, but with 2 little humps on it, and then swoops down and then comes back up to this, which looks a lot shorter than this up here. So let's actually let's go 15 millimeters down to 10 millimeters, and then have this as 5 millimeters total thickness. 15, 10, 5. Let's see how that looks. We can adjust it if we need to. Back to Fusion. Okay, I'm in Fusion. I never switched my camera or my input to the desktop view. So we need to make that profile over here. And then we'll take that around. Let's create a sketch. And this time we want to use this front view or the front plane, those are called. We do need to know, I want to keep this as a front view, the orthographic view, but I'm right clicking just to kind of look at my side. So I need to know where this edge is. I'm going to start my frame from here, but from this front, see if I can snap to that point. See, it doesn't let me snap to that point because that's a different sketch. It lets me hit these main points, but I can't get right on that edge to start my sketch. So what you want to do is project a point and hit the P button. This projects a geometry, so you can use that geometry on your current sketch. So hit project. I'm going to select, I want this very edge right here. So I'm going to select just that point where it intersects. I know that's my outermost edge. If I wasn't sure if this was, say, up here, I would select the whole ring. And then when I'm looking at the front view, I could start at the outermost edge. But this lets me select that point. So done. Now, if I go to my line tool, I can start right on that point. Start from there. We are going to go 30, so just type that in. Select the click, and then it keeps it in your line tool so you can keep going. This is going to go up. We said 15. Click. And then I do want to finish that there because from, actually no, it did have a straight part, and then we'll put the lumps on here. So I'm going to say 10 millimeters in for that, and then click, and then I'm going to finish that. So looking down there, that looks about a third of the way flat with the two little bumps on top, and then it swoops down the rest of the way and meets up with the inner ring. So that was going to be 10 millimeters high. So click starting there. That's the edge of our ring, and then 10 millimeters and click. So go ahead and hit the check mark. From here, we're going to do an arc. So hit escape. I don't need the line anymore. That takes away the line tool. Up here on create, you've got arc and you've got some different options. I like doing the 3-point. That's the most common one I use. You select a start point, an end point, and then you tell it which way to curve and how much to curve. So I'm going to take my start point, my end point, and we want this going down. It's a little bit of a swoop before it comes back up to meet that gold ring. So we're going to do it like that. We'll also use this to add these little guys, little humps up here. So let's escape. So this is 10 total. Each of these main lines is 2.5. Let me zoom out just a little bit. So now they're each 1 millimeter. Pull up my 3-point arc again. I'm going to come in a millimeter, start, go 2 millimeters, actually 3 millimeters, my end point, and we'll bring this up 1 millimeter. Same thing on this side. There's my center. So now I got a gap, 3 millimeters, and bring it up. Okay, we can actually finish this now and see how it looks. Actually, let's make this a little bit smoother here. So on the modify, let's put a fillet there. So select fillet. Now we need to select 2 lines or the corner, and I don't know if that's going to work with that there. Let's see. Zoom in. Yeah, it made. All right, we're gonna make this smaller. Let's just do 1 millimeter. Then hit enter. Let's try to smooth these also. And then it took my line away, so goes back, and we need to do the same. That did point. This is the radius, is what it measures, and basically that's how far down the line it goes before for the whole curve. So this is zero point 0.5 millimeters. So from this point to this point, or basically from here until it goes straight up again, is 0.5 millimeters. So 0.12 millimeters isn't actually much of a dip there. Let's do 0.5. I liked that. Enter, and then do the same over on this side. That 0.5. And we'll give this little rounded edge too. 0.5. You can do that however you want. This little warning, I'm not too concerned with it. Just shows that it was removed. It didn't show an actual warning that there's anything wrong with geometry or anything. Okay, I like that as a profile. Finish sketch. Now you can see that we've got our ovals, and then over here we have our frame. This is going to be our gold ring. That's going to come up the 10 millimeters that we set here. Let's go ahead and create our outer ring. Select this profile here, and it should be fully blue. If it's not blue and you can't select it, then one of these lines isn't connected somewhere. So go back through and check all your lines. Make sure they're connected. Like when I was doing the fillet edge over here, this line disappeared, and then I lost my blue intersection, so it wasn't a complete profile. Um, so got my profile selected. Up here on the create menu, go to sweep. If you highlight over it without selecting it, it shows you what it does and gives an explanation. So what we created, the blue part, is a sketch profile. Um, and that we're gonna use this as our path to follow. So I already had it selected. When I hit the sweep command, it already has my profile selected. If it's not selected, click that, select, and hit your profile. Now we want our path. Select our path is this outer ring, and then you watch the magic happen. Okay, we have an outer frame. Now we want to build up our inner parts. So now we're going to do extrusions. That was a type of extrusion. It used a sweep around a path to extrude the profile we set. Now this profile we select, and we're going to do an extrusion on that. Up here on your menu, you can do extrude. Shortcut is E. Extrude. Now, again, pay attention to your arrow. You can do a negative or a positive. Later, that does matter. Not later. Yes, it will matter later. We're going to do a cut. But make sure it's going the correct direction. Down in the dialog box, you can do a negative if you want it to go down, or a positive. It's going up right now, or you can drag till it meets. One thing that's going to be important right now because this is going to be a different color, before you hit OK, make sure you select this and do new component. That's going to make this its own component that we could save separately as its own STL, and then when we import it, we can make it its own color. Now we can hit OK. Over on the side, you can see that it turned into its own component. Rename this gold ring. If you don't want the gold ring and you just want to go straight from the silhouette to this outer part, you could have skipped the whole offset that I did on the first sketch and then just use that outer ring as your path for your frame. Sorry, I'm moving the mouse around a lot as I'm talking because I can't point my finger and it's highlighting a bunch of stuff. All right, we are done with that. Now let's do our center part. This we're going to bring up. This is 10 millimeters. I said 5 millimeters. So select it, E for extrude, type in 5, and don't hit enter like I just did because that will join it. E for extrude 5. So I just did Control Z to undo that. I use it a lot. Get used to using that. Okay, so 5. Now over on your menu, make sure you do new component again. Hit OK, and we are going to name this background. So, and then our first body, which was the outer part, we hide these two things. That first body that we made, let's turn that into a component now. So right click on it, create components from this body. Now, why we want to do that is because we cannot create an STL directly from a body. We need it to be a component, or I can do the whole thing overall as one STL, and that's a mesh is what they call it. So let's right click on that body, create component. Now it's component 3. This is frame. Okay, we don't need that anymore. Let's hide that. Don't need our gold ring, that's hidden, but we do want our background. If you did want to do all this thinner and save yourself some filament, just reduce all the measurements. So you only want this 2 or 3 millimeters thick. Just subtract that from everything. So instead of 15, you'd have 12. Instead of 10, you'd have 7. All right. I also don't need these sketches anymore, so I don't want to hide all of them, but I can hide those two. Okay, make sure we're looking at the top now, and let's get so we're actually looking at it like we want to look at it. So make sure your word top is facing up like this. You can rotate around till it's the way you want it. We are going to create another sketch now. So highlight the top of this. This is going to be our sketch surface. It's easiest if you select what you want to sketch on first and then hit sketch. If I hit sketch first and then try to select, now you see other stuff popped up. I might accidentally select the wrong plane, and I don't want to do that. If I'm not looking at this the right way, I might select this. So make sure you're looking at it the right way and select it before you hit sketch. Now we have our new plane that we can start doing our SVG import on. Way we bring in an SVG is insert it. Click up here on insert, and as I mentioned, oh, we're not importing a mesh, we're importing SVG, so don't worry about that. Find your SVG. First, I'm going to bring in my silhouette. Open that. Now, it's upside down, backwards. You can flip them right here. If you want them facing the other way, you can do that as well. One thing to keep in mind if you're printing this face down for some reason and you do have words on it, You do need to flip this because you're looking at the top down view of the build plate. If you're printing upside down, you need it backwards to print correctly. So when you take it off the build plate and flip it, you've got everything the right way. Manipulating this now is done with this little thingamajigger. This center is to move it. If you just want to move one direction so you get it centered and you don't want to accidentally move it off the center, you want to make sure you move it directly along that axis. You can do it from these arrows. To resize, use this and just scale it to the size you want. You might have to zoom out here because this always stays in proportion to this. So get it how you want it. I want it taking up a good amount of it and visually centered. Okay, that looks good. When you're happy with it, hit OK. Now we can do some editing on this. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to separate out this first kid, but we need to make this a complete connection all through here. So I like to use the fit point spline, and that lets you make some curves in it, make it look more natural instead of just making straight lines across. So I'm going to start up here, and we're going to be using two things. We'll be using the fit point spline, and then this right here is trim. That has a shortcut T. Uh, so I'll be saying T for trim whenever I use that. So fit point spline. We want to make this look natural. So I'm going to start up. Well, let's look at what part this is first. So you kind of want this coming in at a good angle. This is where they split. So I'm actually going to start there and just kind of take it across until I meet up with this guy here, just to make it look natural. Now you see it locked onto that line. You want to make sure you do that. If it's just a little bit off, you're not going to have a full sketch profile to select. It won't turn completely blue. So that's important. See how it turns into the crosshair there? Go ahead and put it there, end it. Let's do the bottom as well. I'm going to redo that. I don't need it dipping down there. So I'm going to start up here and just kind of take it until I think it looks good. Okay. T for trim. I'm all the way back to where you started. And what this does, it's going to use this as the new continuous line. Let me escape real quick. So see this blue line here? These are my lines. This is the one I added. This is the original. I intersected that. So there's no way to just delete this because that is part of the original. But where that intersects, I can use the trim tool. And now you see that part turns red. Without the trim, if I select it and hit delete, it deletes the whole thing. So Control Z, trim tool, get rid of just that section. Now, constraints are gone, that's fine. So just move along. Now we're redoing that whole line and get rid of all these extra pieces that we don't need. And look at that. Even looks more natural. So escape the trim. Keep going down. This is 3D printing and real narrow areas are hard. This is going to be white, so it'll be a gap. Let's go ahead and fix this. Unfortunately, I should have noticed this in the other view in Inkscape, and I could have fixed it more easily. I can't do anything with this line now once the SVG is imported. So I'm going to do the same thing with the fit point spline and just kind of follow it, but make it fit this uh, width a little better. Okay, I'm connected. Hit escape. Oh, don't hit escape. I had to complete that. I wanted to hit escape to end my tool. Okay, that went a little too high. So now I want to escape. Now I can take this and do some modification. It's going to snap to different points. If you hold control, now it gives you much better free range of motion with it. So let's go ahead and put it there. T for trim, and let's get rid of these pieces. Okay, now there's a good separation there. Follow it down. We need to connect this. I'm going to redo this whole thing as well, just to make it look more like an eyelash. So fit point spline, take it, use control. Let's actually zoom in a little bit. I don't know what an eyelash looks like, but let's call it like that. And then I need to have this curve down and tie into there. And then over here, escape, too much out. That, trim it up. We're gonna do a little fillet there. That looks good, just so it's not a sharp point. And let's fix this a little bit. Let's actually get rid of that point. Okay, I think that gets the point across. This is the chin, so we want to give it some rounding here. Start to curve a little bit and meet up. Just try to follow that. All the way around. T for trim. And now look, when I select, when I highlight, or when I hover over him, he highlights just by himself and they highlight by themselves. So if you want to do all three of them separate, I'm not going to do it. That's the process. And we will save these as two separate. You would save them as three separate. Okay, let's go ahead and next do the name. We can stay on this same sketch for everything. I want to do this curved. In my example, I did it straight across. I want to do it curved across the bottom. So we're going to do a text along a path. So if I just create a text here, text box, smaller. There's no way to make this curve. I can change angles and stuff, but I can't change it to make it a curve. But if you notice up here, there's a text on path that looks like a curve. Do that and click that curve just as an example. There it is. You can see now it curves along there. Cancel that. So let's give ourselves a curve for it to go along. Make a line. Actually, we're going to make an arc. We want 3-point arc. This is construction. We don't need it for anything. Eyeball how you want it to be. Start over here. Remember, we're doing 2 points and then the dip. This is 70. You can count the lines between just to make sure you're even on each side. I'm going to do from the outside. There's 2 hole and a 2/3 one. So that looks good. And then I kind of want it to follow the curve of the oval. Uh, let's do that. Now, escape. Now when I go to create text and I do text on path, select my path. Now look at it. Flip it. There we go. So it defaulted to below. You can flip it here. If you want it below and keeping the same, we're gonna have to make this smaller anyways. Center it. There we go. So if you want to keep it small, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but that's how we get it. So up here in your box where it said sample text, if you click in there, you'll see 2 little apostrophes or whatever those are called, characters. You want to make sure you type everything between those. Okay, in here you can select your font, whatever you would like it to be. Try to find something fun. I like ink free. Let's make it a little bigger right now, and this is in millimeters. So let's go 6. I don't want it to be right on there. And then hit OK. And we are, let's bring in our SVG that I talked about up here on the top. Insert SVG. Detail. This is going to be really small, I think. Actually was that way, I believe. It's over on the right. Center that. Let's make it a little bigger. Okay. And now we're going to make that line that runs down here. So we'll use a fit point spline. No, we won't. Let's do an arc. Start it, say it there. Should have done, I might do the words underneath so I can kind of have this line up with it. That wasn't an arc. I'm going to do that. Remove the words underneath. And then we're going to do a mirror to get this to the other side just so it stays the same. But I don't want a construction line. My last was a construction line, so it defaulted. To change it, you don't have to do it over. Select it, and then you can change it right in that box. Now I want this to have a little bit of depth, so we're going to do an offset out, say, wait, let's do one, let's do 1 millimeter. And make sure that's not construction. Okay. And then just do a line to connect those top and bottom. Actually, let's do a little arc. Just round it off. Okay, now to do the mirror, double click that, and because it's connected on both ends, so if you just select one, if you just click once, now it just selects that one half. If you double click, it's going to select the whole chain, everything that's connected. We want to do over on create a mirror. And since we started everything on the center point, we can use our center point for our mirror line. We're going to take, no, we cannot use our center point. So we need to make a center point. Let's make a line. Doesn't matter where, just right down the middle. Select that line, and over here on your sketch palette options, make it a center line. Mirror, double click, get the whole chain. Mirror line. Because I made it a center line, it automatically knows that that is going to be my mirror line. So it was already selected. If it didn't select it, or if you wanted to use something else as your mirror line, you would click this and then select what you want to use. Okay, I want to edit my text. And put that below. Let's move it up. And I actually need to redo some of this. It's a little too close there. Let's move it. Did not like that. Okay. Just redid it. I wasn't going to figure out how to make those move. But now it's got a decent distance between there. And I think it looks okay. Let's move that down a little bit. Finish sketch. Okay, now we want to extrude all of this. So let's think about our levels. We're going to have all this, this, and the family, the Birdno family at one level, the lowest extrusion. So I'm going to do that at the same as this. So 1 millimeter for all of this. And then I'll do this at 1.5. Or I'll do this at 2. If you wanted to do them different, if you did them all separate, you can do 1, 2, 3, 1, 1.5, 2, however you want to do it. But this and all the decorative stuff is going to be 1, and this will be 2. Zoom in, select everything. So you want to get where it turns blue. You want to select the inside part. That is your sketch. That's your profile right there that you will extrude, just like we did for the rings on the bottom. So select the main part of them there. Make sure there aren't any little circles hidden. No, got the whole thing. Then we want to select, you might have to zoom in, hold shift and then click that. Same thing up here. You're gonna have to zoom in and get in all the little areas. That. We also want that selected. Okay, E for extrude. Okay, this is going to be 1 millimeter. So we've got everything. One. And don't do what I just did. I'm going to fast forward again. New body, new component, every color. This is going to be black, so we need a black component. Now that's good. Now over here, rename your component. This is going to be black. I just like to call it the color. It's the same thing for these actually. And I'll show you why whenever we're putting it in the slicer. Okay, last thing is this guy, E for extrude. That's 2 millimeters. Okay, you can see slightly different levels. So I think it looks kind of cool. It looks like as they're getting closer to you, they pop out a little more. I did not make that a new component. So I just control Z 2 millimeters. Now it's a new component. This is also black. We'll call it black 2. Okay, now we have all of our pieces. We can take it over to the slicer. Let's go ahead and unhide those. I think that looks pretty dang good. We want to save them individually. So what you're going to do, make sure you've got them all as separate components, first of all, and don't do joins like I was doing. Right click on these now and save as mesh. Preparation is going to be export. It's just the one, just doing the gold ring first. Format STL in millimeters. I don't mess with any of that. I want it just like it is. Hit OK. Now this is going to bring up where you're going to save it. So first I want to make this a project. This is going to be new project. Silhouette in frame. Enter. Scroll down, make sure you double click on that. So this one is gold ring, and this is where it's actually going in your computer. So save to my computer. Sentinel Peak Design Studio, Silhouette, that's where I want it. Save it. Now everything is gonna default to that, so this part's easy. Just go down your list, save it. Now that I'm thinking about it, this second one I could have actually done as a join with this one. I did the extrusion separate, so it is going to be a different level already. I could have done this and all of those as one since they are the same color, but it doesn't hurt anything. Just a extra little step. So I'm going to take this into my Anycubic Next slicer. I like to do this on my Cobra X. So got a new project. We need to load all those files basically as one piece on here. So add, find your folder, use control and select all of the colors. Hit open. Now this part is important. Load these files as a single object with multiple parts. If I'm opening usually and want to be able to move stuff around, like move stuff between plates, I would hit no. Right now it's important that you hit yes. And now that keeps this all as one piece. If I resize anything, it resizes the whole thing. However, over here, if you click on objects, each one is its own object in that piece. So I can still color them independently. So let's go ahead and set our colors up. I've got a black, I've got a white, I need a brown, and I need a gold. So this part's easy. Instead of having to go through and paint everything with the paint tool, all you need to do over here in your side panel, you've got the colors it is. The colors up here have numbers. Just click on that object and hit the number. 4 is black, so black. Black is 4, brown is 2, gold is 3, and white is white. And look at that beauteous silhouette in a frame. Now, a couple things. This, as I did it, is going to require AMS, and it's going to take a fair amount of filament changes through those first 5 millimeters that we set that. Actually, 7 millimeters, because you got to go all the way up to the black, all the way up here. So you can save them as separate objects and glue them together. Your tolerances might be a little tight. There are some other options to get it separate pieces to make it easier for printing and a lot less waste. Um, One option would be when we did this extrusion in the middle, just save that as its own piece. Let me switch back over to Fusion real quick and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to hide all the inside stuff. Now from here, we can have our outside frame as a main piece. Let me hide the gold too. I don't need that sketch. That one. Let's keep my first one. Okay. If I wanted to just make this a frame all by itself and then use the white as an insert, I can take this whole thing, select the middle of that. Now over on your side, you want to make sure that you've got this selected as your active component. And what we're going to do is make a frame with a back here. So select our two intersections and E for extrude, and we'll say 2 millimeters, and make sure this is joined. We've got this as our active component, so this is going to join with our frame that we already made. And now let's hide our sketch so it doesn't look like lines, so you don't see the lines. And now we've got a solid piece. We can print this as one solid brown piece, and then print the ring separate, and then print the white piece with the silhouette as its own piece. And that's pretty simple because at the bottom's all white and then it's black on top of that. So you wouldn't need any color swaps for that either. Just put a pause in there. So those are some options to make it much less waste. For this example, I did not do that. Actually, I have a Snapmaker U1 as well, so I might make this on that, and that's got the tool changer, so it wouldn't do any purge waste. All right, pause it there and go ahead and throw it off to the printer. All right, real quick. I don't know why I did brown. It's black. I like black better. So this is easy to fix, and I am just getting ready to send it to the printer. So I will show you how to do that real quick. Over here, all you got to do is click and hit 4. Now you got black. Now, one other thing, I mentioned doing a separate piece with the outside and the inside. What I'm going to do right now is this white layer is 5 millimeters thick. Take your go into paint. Take your, what is this called here? Yeah, color painting. For height range, and do 4 millimeters. So that'll leave a millimeter of white, and that should be plenty that you won't be able to see the black through it. So to get it exactly from the bottom, instead of trying to do it here on the side and hit the very bottom, just come down and touch the bottom. And that gets all the way across the bottom and does it essentially 4 millimeters up. Okay, now I am just going to go load some filament, print it, and I believe it's set about 4 hours. Let's see. 3 hours and 19 minutes. This is on the Snapmaker, so for the color changes, there is no purge waste or swap time. All right, and there we have our final piece. It needs to have some refinement done. I can get some better settings in there, um, get the finish a little better. Also, some of these lines were a little bit too thin. You can see this circle didn't complete, or the little loop like on this side. But overall, I think it came out pretty good, and compared to, I think that looks pretty good. All right, thanks for following along. Let me know if you got any questions. But wait, there's more, or whatever the guy on TV said. Um, I forgot we need to hang this somehow. So I went into Tinkercad and made a little cutter tool that uh, lets us hang it with a nail. Um, I'll show you how, or show you what it looks like in Tinkercad and give you a quick breakdown. I'm not going to recreate the whole thing, but I'll show you how I made that. Now we can just import that same thing into the slicer, merge it with this, and then we've got a way to hang this. So let me get over to, oh, and Kitty's joining us tonight. Now in Tinkercad, you'll notice this looks a little bit different than Fusion. Tinkercad uses a lot of shapes to build different models. You can import, this is good for working with SVGs for making basic things. But a lot of the building is done using shapes and using holes to manipulate those shapes and turn them into different shapes. So this is kind of a broken down view of what the hole slicer looks like. I'm going to go ahead and turn it into a hole real quick. So this is what goes on the bottom of the frame. The nail head will go in here and slide up. We're looking at the bottom, slide up and sit inside this, and that'll hold it. All around the outside, the model will be printed. So that's the hole you see underneath, and then the rest of that is hidden inside the model. Let's go ahead and go back to show you what it's actually made of. It's a bunch of simple parts that I combined and made a new part that fit my purpose. You can see kind of the outlines of the shapes underneath. I got just a regular cylinder over here, and then I took another cylinder and then just pinched it in, elongated it, and then took another one and moved it up to give me that offset to hold the nail in, because the filament will be built around this. And then I put some cones on top. They weren't necessary, but without the cones, right here on the print, you would be having some bridging going across that whole distance. And most printers can handle that, some can't. And I just, to avoid the problem, I went ahead and just extended it up a little bit, put a 45-degree angle here. So those should print The cone should print nicely. And then what this box on top is going to do is cut that top off right there. And now all we're going to have to do is the bridging across this distance, which is probably about half, maybe a little more than half the distance. Still much more doable. So just all the separate parts broken apart. That is all it was. Took those, put them all together. When you've got them all together, you can highlight them, hit the Boolean operation, union, and that gives you your tool. Now, over in the slicer, I will show you how to use that. Disregard the colors. It's just so we can see a little bit easier what's actually going on underneath. So there's no way to center two objects, at least that I've found. So I'm just going to try to eyeball this and get it as close to the center as I can. So I'm going to say that this is our center and just take it straight up from there. I do want it on this solid piece. I don't want part of it going into this gold piece because they are separate objects. It's going to do some weird stuff with the cutting or with the Boolean operation. So let's look at the underside. You can see it through the gray. They are on the same level. So when it prints, that will cut a perfect hole out. It's not going to leave any of that gray or any first layer actually there. It'll cut all the way through. What we want to do first is assemble the two pieces. So select them both, right click, assemble. Oh, look at that. There was a center. Let me see what that does. If I can select it. No, that just centered it on the plate. That didn't actually center anything in here. Okay, assemble. Now that they're assembled, run your mesh Boolean, your Boolean operation. You want difference, subtract from. I'm going to try to get this little guy. Sometimes it's hard to select it just because it is kind of hidden in there. Oh, it got it. So make sure it says it's selected, the hanger hole. Select, make sure you click on the outside here. If I click in here, you see it says white, and now it's going to try to cut from that, but we're not even lined up, so it's going to be impossible. So make sure that you click out here. I did name the ring brown. That's the frame ring, so I do know I have the right piece selected. Got my cutter. I don't need the input. Click difference, and it runs the operation. And now we have a nail hole. And now it's done. It can be hung on the wall. I'm going to go ahead and put that cutter tool on my Maker World. That could be used on anything. I think it's 5 millimeters tall or 6 millimeters tall. So you can use that same thing on anything that you want to hang on the wall going forward. That cutter should work just fine for you. You can do it twice if you want to put 2 holes, or just one if you can find the center easily. Thank you for following along.